Okay, so have you ever tried to like debug a really tricky software issue, but the clues are written on like scraps of paper?
Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah, and then those scraps of paper are scattered by like a hurricane.
Oh, wow.
It's a little bit like what it feels like to manage logs in a Kubernetes environment, just this like whirlwind of data that's constantly shifting and disappearing.
Yeah, it can be pretty overwhelming.
But don't worry, today's deep dive, we are going to equip you to become a master log detective, even when you're in the face of like Kubernetes chaos.
Yeah, it's true that Kubernetes logging can be a bit overwhelming at first, especially when you consider that containers and pods are, by their nature, ephemeral.
Right.
You could have a pod eviction or a node failure, and suddenly, poof, those crucial logs just disappear.
Yeah, those logs are like fleeting like a Snapchat message. So we're diving into the world of Kubernetes logging today. And we are going to tackle a few big things, like where do those logs even come from? Is relying solely on AWS CloudWatch enough? And then we're going to compare 3 popular logging solutions. That way you can choose the right tool for the job. Stick with us, and I promise you're going to be surprised by the fascinating insights that we uncover about how software really operates, especially at scale.
It's a journey that takes us from the heart of your applications to the sprawling infrastructure of a Kubernetes cluster, revealing those hidden signals that can mean the difference between smooth sailing and a major outage.
All right, so let's unpack this. So all of our sources highlight that logs in Kubernetes, they come from 3 main places: containers, pods, and nodes. It's almost like those Russian nesting dolls, with each layer containing the next.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. At the innermost level, you have containers. Each container generates its own stream of logs, just like a personal diary. It chronicles every action, every hiccup, and those logs are really valuable for understanding what's happening within that specific container.
And then we move outwards to the pod, which is essentially like a group of containers all working together.
Right.
So then the pod's logs would aggregate the logs from all of its containers, right?
Exactly. It's like having a combined journal for the entire team working within that pod. But here's a catch. Both container and pod logs, they're inherently ephemeral. They exist only as long as the container or pod itself. As soon as a pod is terminated or a container restarts, those logs, they can just disappear. And then you're left with a potentially incomplete picture.
Now that sounds like a recipe for frustration.
It definitely can be.
Especially when you're trying to troubleshoot like an intermittent issue. It's like trying to solve a mystery, but half of the evidence is missing.
You hit the nail on the head. And that's precisely why relying solely on these ephemeral logs can be so problematic. If you're investigating a critical error or a performance bottleneck, you need reliable access to those logs, even after those containers or pods are gone.
So what about the logs at the node level? Do those offer a more persistent record?
So each node in your Kubernetes cluster does have a logging agent, and that agent gathers logs from all the pods running on it. So it does provide a slightly more stable view, but it still has its limitations.
Okay.
For one thing, the logs are still local to that specific node. So if the node experiences a failure or gets replaced, let's say during a cluster upgrade, you could lose those logs as well.
Okay, so we've got these ephemeral logs at the container and pod level, and then these potentially fleeting logs at the node level. So this is starting to sound like a real headache.
Yeah, it can be a challenge.
If we can't rely on those logs directly, where do we turn? One of the sources mentioned a log collector as kind of a potential hero in this story.
That's right. Log collectors, they step in to solve this very problem. They act as central hubs, gathering those scattered logs from across your entire Kubernetes cluster, regardless of how ephemeral those individual sources might be.
So it's like having this like dedicated team of archivists. They meticulously collect and preserve all these valuable logs, even as the containers and pods, they come and go. That sounds like a much more reliable approach.
It is, and it's not just about preservation. Log collectors, they go beyond simply gathering the data. They can process, they can filter, and they can even enrich those logs, making them far more useful for analysis and troubleshooting.
Now that's where it gets really interesting. You mentioned filtering. Can you elaborate on how that works? Because I can imagine Kubernetes generates a massive amount of log data, especially at scale.
Absolutely. Filtering is one of the key benefits of using a log collector. Instead of drowning in a sea of irrelevant information, you can configure the collector to capture only the logs that matter to you, based on specific criteria like log level, source, or even content patterns. This not only makes analysis easier, but also helps optimize your storage costs.
So it's like having a smart search engine that sifts through all those logs and then surfaces only the relevant results. So you save time and money.
Exactly.
What about this log enrichment that you mentioned? Is that like adding sprinkles to a cupcake, making it more appealing?
I like that analogy. In a way, yes. Log enrichment involves adding valuable metadata to each log entry. It provides context and makes it easier to understand the bigger picture. Think of it like adding breadcrumbs to a fairy tale forest. It helps you trace the path of events more easily.
Okay, so we're not just collecting the logs, but we're adding this extra information that helps us understand where they came from, when they were generated, and maybe even what events they're related to.
Precisely. And this metadata can include things like the pod name, the namespace, the container ID, and even host information. This can be incredibly valuable for filtering, analyzing, and correlating logs from different sources. Imagine trying to track down an issue that spans multiple containers or even different nodes. That metadata can really help you connect the dots.
So far, log collectors sound like a must-have in the Kubernetes toolkit. Gathering those ephemeral logs, filtering out the noise, even enriching them with valuable context. But now I'm wondering, what about CloudWatch? I know it's a popular tool for logging in AWS environments. Can't we just use that for our Kubernetes logs?
CloudWatch is certainly a powerful service, especially if you're already deeply embedded in the AWS ecosystem.
Right.
It offers robust logging capabilities, and it can be a good starting point for basic Kubernetes logging.
Okay.
However, it does have some limitations when it comes to handling the unique challenges of a Kubernetes environment.
Okay, I was kind of sensing a but coming there. What are some of those limitations?
Well, one of the key drawbacks is that CloudWatch can lack the flexibility and customization options you get with a dedicated log collector. You see, it's primarily designed for collecting and analyzing logs from AWS services, so it might not be the best fit for the more intricate logging needs of a dynamic Kubernetes cluster.
So it's like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole.
Right.
It might work to some extent, but it's not ideal.
Yeah, exactly.
What other challenges do we need to consider?
Another important consideration is cost. CloudWatch pricing is based on the volume of logs you ingest and store. So while it might seem affordable initially, the costs can quickly escalate as your Kubernetes deployments grow and generate more and more log data.
Right, so we could end up with like a nasty surprise on our AWS bill if we're not careful.
It's possible.
And I imagine this becomes even more critical in a dynamic environment like Kubernetes, where the number of containers and pods can fluctuate constantly.
Exactly. And this is another area where log collectors can really shine.
Okay.
They can help optimize those CloudWatch costs by filtering and processing logs before they even reach CloudWatch, ensuring that you're only paying for the data that you truly need.
All right, so we've got log collectors. They offer a way to tame those runaway costs, add some valuable context to our logs, and give us the flexibility we need to manage logging effectively in a Kubernetes environment.
Right.
But now we've got another puzzle in front of us. Which log collector should we actually choose? Luckily, our sources have narrowed it down to 3 popular contenders. We've got Fluent Bit, and sticking with the AWS theme, we have CloudWatch Container Insights.
It's like a friendly competition between 3 logging superheroes.
Oh.
Each with their own strengths and weaknesses. Choosing the right one really comes down to understanding your specific needs and finding the tool that fits best with your Kubernetes workflow.
I love a good superhero showdown, so let's break them down one by one. Let's start with Fluent. What makes it stand out in this crowded world of log collectors?
Fluent is often described as the heavy hitter of log collectors. It's renowned for its incredible customizability and flexibility. With over 500 plugins available, you can integrate Fluent with a vast array of systems, from Elasticsearch and Splunk for log analysis to S3 and, of course, CloudWatch for storage. This makes it incredibly versatile and adaptable to almost any logging scenario.
Wow, 500 plugins. That's like having a Swiss Army knife for your logs. It sounds incredibly powerful. But with great power comes, well, you know the rest. Are there any trade-offs we need to be aware of with Fluent? Does this power come at a cost?
Yeah, you're right to be cautious. All that flexibility and power does come at a price. Fluent can be quite resource-intensive, requiring more computing power and memory to run effectively.
Okay.
And while its vast array of plugins is a strength, it can also make configuration quite complex, especially for those who are new to Fluent. It's a bit like having a high-performance sports car. It can take you far and fast, but you need to know how to handle it.
So for large organizations with really complex logging needs, Fluentd could be a great choice, but smaller teams might find it a bit overwhelming.
Right.
What about our second contender, Fluent Bit? The name sounds familiar.
Yeah, Fluent Bit is actually part of the same ecosystem as Fluent, sharing much of its core DNA.
Okay.
However, while Fluent is the heavyweight champion, Fluent Bit is more like the nimble ninja warrior,
Okay.
It's designed to be lightweight and incredibly fast, making it ideal for resource-constrained environments or situations where performance is absolutely paramount.
Okay, so if Fluent is the powerful sports car, Fluent Bit is like a sleek, high-performance motorcycle, perfect for navigating those tight spaces and getting to your destination quickly. Are there any downsides to this, like, lightweight approach? Does it sacrifice features for speed?
You know, there's always a trade-off, right? While Fluent Bit excels in speed and efficiency, it doesn't boast the same breadth of features or that plugin ecosystem as Fluent.
I see.
So it might not be the best choice for organizations with extremely complex logging pipelines or those requiring a vast array of integrations.
So, for basic logging tasks, resource-constrained environments, or situations where speed is crucial, Fluent Bit could be a really good option.
Absolutely.
But what about our final contender, AWS CloudWatch Container Insights? It sounds like it's deeply integrated with the AWS world, which could be a big plus for those already using AWS for their Kubernetes deployments.
Yeah, you're spot on. CloudWatch Container Insights is a managed service from AWS. It's specifically designed to provide logging and monitoring capabilities for containerized applications running in Amazon EKS, their managed Kubernetes service. So as you mentioned, for AWS users, this tight integration could be a major advantage, simplifying setup and offering a seamless experience within the AWS ecosystem.
Seamless integration. That's music to the ears of anyone who spent hours wrestling with configuring different tools.
I hear you.
What other advantages does CloudWatch Container Insights bring to the table?
Well, it comes with some built-in visualizations and dashboards, which can be really helpful for quickly gaining insights from your logs without having to set up additional tools.
Right.
And because it's a managed service, AWS handles much of the heavy lifting in terms of maintenance and scaling, freeing you up to focus on other priorities.
That sounds appealing. But every superhero has a weakness, right? What are the potential drawbacks of relying on CloudWatch Container Insights? Does this AWS integration come with any strings attached?
Well, one of the main concerns is that, like many managed services, CloudWatch Container Insights might not offer the same level of customization or flexibility as self-hosted solutions like Fluent or Fluent Bit.
Okay.
So you're somewhat limited to the features and integrations that AWS provides.
So while it's easy to get started and might be a good fit for simpler use cases, you could hit a wall if your logging needs become more complex, or you need to integrate with tools outside of the AWS ecosystem.
That's a possibility.
Okay, so we've got 3 log collectors, each with their own strengths and weaknesses. Fluent, the powerful but complex Swiss Army knife. Fluent Bit, the nimble and efficient motorcycle. And CloudWatch Container Insights, the seamlessly integrated but potentially limiting managed service. It seems like choosing the right one really depends a lot on the specific needs of your project, your comfort level with configuration, and your budget.
Absolutely. There's no one-size-fits-all answer. It's like choosing the right tool for a job. Do you need a heavy-duty hammer or a precision screwdriver? The answer depends on the task at hand.
Well, we've explored the origins of those Kubernetes logs, the challenges of relying solely on CloudWatch, and we've even met our 3 logging superheroes, Fluent, Fluent Bit, and CloudWatch Container Insights.
Right.
But before we get too lost in the weeds of choosing the perfect tool, I want to step back for a moment and remind everybody why this whole logging business even matters.
Yes, good point.
It might not sound as glamorous as, say, building a fancy new user interface.
Right.
But trust me, it is crucial for keeping your software healthy and running smoothly.
I couldn't agree more. Logging is the unsung hero of software development, especially in the complex world of Kubernetes. Without proper logging, you're essentially flying blind. You can't troubleshoot effectively, you might miss crucial performance bottlenecks, and security issues could slip through the cracks unnoticed.
Yeah, it's like trying to navigate a ship through a storm without a compass or a map.
Exactly.
You might eventually reach your destination, but the journey is going to be a lot more difficult and definitely more risky. And that brings us back to our initial comparison of those Kubernetes logs to scraps of paper scattered by a hurricane. It might seem chaotic at first, but with the right tools and strategies, we can tame those wild logs and turn them into a valuable source of insight. But how do we do that? How do we go beyond simply collecting logs to actually making sense of them, extracting those meaningful insights, and using them to improve our applications and our infrastructure?
That's a great question. And it leads us to the next chapter in our logging adventure, log management. It's about taking those raw logs, processing them, analyzing them, and ultimately turning them into actionable intelligence. It's a fascinating world, and we'll delve into it right after a quick break. Stay tuned. All right, we'll be right back after this. Welcome back. So we've laid the foundation for like a solid Kubernetes logging strategy. We've explored where logs come from, the challenges of using just CloudWatch by itself, and we even met our three logging superheroes, Fluent Bits, and CloudWatch Container Insights.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground.
But our journey doesn't stop there.
No, it doesn't. Now we're moving into like the realm of log management,
Right.
which is the art of transforming those raw logs into actionable insights. It's like taking a giant jigsaw puzzle and you're assembling it piece by piece to reveal the bigger picture.
Exactly.
I'm intrigued, but honestly, log management always sounded kind of intimidating to me, like something only data scientists with like fancy degrees could handle.
Yeah, I can see why you might think that.
Is it really that complex?
It can be, but it doesn't have to be. Log management encompasses the entire life cycle of your logs, from that initial collection and processing that we discussed earlier to analysis, visualization, and even long-term archiving. And while it can involve some complex techniques, the core principles are surprisingly accessible. Think of it like this. You don't need to be a master chef to bake a delicious cake, right?
Right.
You just need the right ingredients and a good recipe.
Okay, that's a reassuring way to put it. So what are the key ingredients for effective log management in Kubernetes?
Well, first and foremost, you need a clear understanding of what you want to achieve with your logs. Are you primarily focused on troubleshooting errors? Do you want to monitor application performance? Or maybe you're looking for insights into user behavior or security threats. Defining your goals up front, that's going to guide your entire log management strategy.
It makes sense. It's like setting out on a road trip. You need to know where you're going before you can plan the best route to get there. So once we have our goals in mind, what's next?
Well, the next step is choosing the right tools to help you collect, process, analyze, and visualize your logs. We've already discussed log collectors like Fluent and Fluent Bit, but now we need to think about how to make sense of all that data that they gather. And that's where tools like Elasticsearch, Splunk, and Grafana come in. They're like powerful search engines and data visualization platforms that are designed specifically for logs.
I've heard of those tools, but to be honest, they always seemed a bit intimidating. Like something only hardcore developers or system administrators would use. Can you demystify them a bit for me?
Absolutely. While these tools can be incredibly powerful and are often used by technical experts, they're becoming increasingly user-friendly, even for those without a deep technical background. They offer intuitive interfaces, visual dashboards, and even drag-and-drop functionality that makes it easier for anyone to explore their logs and extract meaningful insights.
So even if I'm not a coding whiz, I can still use these tools to find, like, the needles in my log haystack.
Exactly. And the beauty of these tools is that they can be customized to fit your specific needs.
Right.
You can create dashboards that display the metrics that matter most to you, set up alerts for critical events, and even generate reports that help you track trends over time. It's like having a personalized control panel for your Kubernetes logs, giving you that clear view of what's happening beneath the surface.
Okay, I'm starting to see how log management can be more than just a chore. It can be like a powerful tool for understanding our applications and our infrastructure at a much deeper level.
It is.
But with so much information like flowing in, how do we avoid getting overwhelmed? How do we focus on the signals that matter and filter out all that noise?
Well, that's where the art of log analysis comes in.
Okay.
It's about developing the skills to sift through mountains of data, identify patterns, and extract those meaningful insights. It's like being a detective. You need to follow those clues, connect the dots, and ultimately solve the mystery.
Okay, so what are some techniques or approaches that can help us become better, log detectives?
Well, one key technique is to focus on anomalies and outliers.
Okay.
Look for unusual spikes in activity, error messages that keep recurring, or performance metrics that deviate from the norm.
Okay.
These can often be early warning signs of underlying issues that need your attention.
So it's like looking for those subtle clues that like a seasoned detective might pick up on, a fingerprint that's out of place, or a discrepancy in a witness's story. But how do we even know what's normal for our applications so we can spot those deviations?
That's a great question. Establishing baselines and trends is another crucial aspect of log analysis. By monitoring your logs over time, you can start to get a sense of what typical behavior looks like for your applications and infrastructure. And this helps you quickly identify deviations from the norm and investigate potential problems before they escalate.
So we're not just reacting to problems after they occur. We're proactively monitoring our logs, establishing baselines, looking for those anomalies, and then using that information to keep our systems running smoothly.
Precisely.
It's like having a team of health inspectors who are constantly monitoring our software and identifying those potential issues before they cause, a major outbreak.
Exactly. And this proactive approach is what truly elevates log management from a reactive necessity to a strategic advantage.
Okay.
By analyzing logs effectively, we can not only troubleshoot problems, but also optimize performance, improve security, and even gain insights into user behavior that can inform product development decisions.
That's incredible. It's like, those businesses that use data analytics to predict customer behavior or optimize their supply chains.
Right.
We can apply those same principles to our software and infrastructure, using logs as this rich source of data to drive continuous improvement.
Exactly. And as we move into a world of increasingly complex and distributed systems, this ability to effectively manage and analyze logs will only become more and more crucial. It's no longer just about keeping up with the latest tools and technologies. It's about developing a logging mindset, a way of thinking about our systems that prioritizes observability and data-driven decision-making.
That's a powerful message. So it's about shifting from a reactive, fix it when it breaks mentality to a more proactive, let's understand what's happening and make it better approach.
Yes.
And logs, as it turns out, are kind of the key to unlocking that understanding.
They are, and we're just scratching the surface of what's possible with log management and analysis. As the field continues to evolve, we're seeing exciting new tools and techniques emerge, especially in the realm of artificial intelligence and machine learning.
Now, that's a topic that I'm eager to explore. AI for logs. That sounds both futuristic and incredibly promising. How does that work? What kind of impact could it have on how we manage and analyze logs in the future? Well, we'll dive into those questions right after a quick break. Don't go anywhere.
Welcome back to our deep dive into Kubernetes logging. So we've explored where those logs come from, the strengths and weaknesses of the various log collectors, and we even, dipped our toes into the fascinating world of log management.
Yeah.
But we saved the most intriguing topic for last.
We did.
The role of AI in the future of logging.
Oh,
AI
yeah.
for logs. It sounds almost like science fiction.
It might sound futuristic, but the use of AI and machine learning, or ML, in log analysis is rapidly becoming a reality. It's like having this superpowered log detective who's working tirelessly behind the scenes, sifting through those mountains of data, surfacing those critical insights that humans might miss. Okay, I'm all ears. So how exactly does AI work its magic in the realm of logs? Does it involve robots, like reading through lines of code and whispering secrets to us?
Not quite robots whispering secrets, but the concept isn't too far off.
Okay.
AI algorithms, particularly in machine learning, are trained on these vast data sets of logs. And what they do is they identify patterns, anomalies, and correlations that would be incredibly difficult, if not impossible, for humans to spot manually.
So it's like training a digital bloodhound to sniff out those subtle scents that we might overlook.
Exactly.
So what kind of patterns can these AI algorithms detect? Can you give me some concrete examples?
Absolutely. Imagine you have an e-commerce application.
Okay.
An AI-powered log analysis system could be trained to identify patterns that indicate, let's say, a potential issue with the checkout process.
Oh, okay.
For example, it might notice a sudden increase in error messages related to credit card processing or an unusual spike in abandoned shopping carts.
So it's not just about detecting that something is wrong. It's about understanding the context of the issue and potentially even predicting problems before they impact a large number of users.
That's right, exactly.
That's pretty impressive.
It is, and this is just one example.
Right.
AI can be used to detect a wide range of issues, from security breaches and performance bottlenecks to subtle changes in user behavior that might indicate a need for product improvements.
So this is starting to feel like something straight out of a sci-fi movie. Are there any real-world examples of companies using AI for log analysis effectively? Is this actually happening?
Oh, absolutely. There are more and more companies leveraging AI for log analysis all the time. For example, one company that we researched used AI to analyze security logs.
Okay.
And they were actually able to detect and prevent a really sophisticated cyber attack that would have otherwise gone unnoticed.
Wow.
Another company used AI-powered log analysis to optimize the performance of their cloud infrastructure, which resulted in significant cost savings.
Okay, so this isn't just a theoretical concept. It's already making a real impact in how companies manage their software and infrastructure. That's pretty exciting. But I have to ask, are there any potential downsides or risks associated with using AI for log analysis? I've seen enough sci-fi movies to know that things don't always go as planned when you introduce advanced technology.
Well, that's a valid concern. Like any powerful technology, AI can be misused or implemented poorly. One risk is that AI algorithms can be biased,
Okay.
leading to inaccurate or unfair conclusions.
Hmm.
So it's essential to carefully select your training data and rigorously test those AI models to ensure they're performing as expected and not perpetuating harmful biases.
So just like human detectives can have biases, so can their digital counterparts.
Right.
So what can we do to mitigate that risk?
Well, it all comes down to responsible development and implementation. We need to carefully curate that training data, making sure it's representative and unbiased. And we also need to continuously monitor and evaluate these AI systems to make sure that they're making fair and accurate judgments. It's like having quality control for your AI detectives.
Okay, so it's not a set it and forget it
Yeah.
situation. We need to be actively involved in guiding and refining these AI systems, making sure they're working for us, not against us.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that AI is a tool, not a replacement for human expertise.
Right.
The most effective approach is going to involve collaboration between human analysts and AI systems. So AI can handle that heavy lifting of data processing and pattern detection, while the humans, they bring their critical thinking, their experience, their intuition to interpret those results and make informed decisions.
It's like a dynamic duo, the AI sidekick, providing that lightning-fast analysis, and the human detective bringing the strategic thinking and nuanced understanding.
Yeah,
And that's the future you see for log management.
it is a powerful partnership between human intelligence and artificial intelligence, unlocking insights and driving innovation in ways that we can only begin to imagine.
Well, what a journey this has been. We've gone from herding digital cats in a Kubernetes hurricane to, like, wielding logging superpowers with the help of AI. I feel like I've leveled up my understanding of Kubernetes logging, and I've gained some really valuable insights that I can actually apply to my own work.
I'm so glad to hear that. And remember, the journey of logging, it's never truly over.
Right.
There's always more to learn, new tools to explore, and deeper insights to uncover. So keep experimenting, keep learning, and keep those logs flowing.
Well said. And on that note, we'll wrap up our deep dive into this fascinating world of Kubernetes logging. Until next time, happy logging.